Okay, so I feel like we are good to go. So from now on, I'm going to talk about the workshop I have been prepared for JTerm. I think this is third time of having a workshop in JTerm. I like JTerm because very short time, people can really focusing on just like hackathon, like bootcamp, right? So we can get one particular the skill or experience during the JTerm. So like bootcamp, as I mentioned. So today I'm going to talk about the overall sort of the workshop structure. Once you fully execute the server, you are able to see this kind of app, right? So just go to the workshop here. And you can see some comment and title, things like that. But the workshop is more about like get some map, where we can pursue based on your interest or direction or whatever. This is because the data is kind of becoming essential tool for all the design in modern days, I think. So some is like, urban designer, architectural designer, landscape designer, they actually can utilize the data as a design material. So in order to do this, we need to understand what is the tool to cook the data, basically. So it's nothing special. It's more about like, how we are dealing with the explicit way to dealing with the data during the design process. Actually, before using this kind of technology, we already get familiar with this kind of the dealing with data based on your intuition or experience. You are kind of the tool to process all the information around you, which is necessary for the design. So, first of all, in order to make a more explicit tool to process design, I guess we can understand what is the kind of use cases or potential way of using the software or coding, the code for design. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in terms of using the material as a design material on the very high level. And then in order to do this, I mean, it looks very fancy, it looks very, very high tech, but again, the foundation is always like very primitive. And also the foundation is very important. The foundation is nothing special, which is just like learning code, that's it. But the level of learning code is different. So what I expect is that for the designer is that we are not like software engineer. We don't need to understand everything around the computer software development process, but at least we need to understand the necessary tool for, use the code. For example, like data structure and, how we use the geometry for your design process, not only for visualization, but also the geometry itself is kind of data structure. So in order to do this, we just need to digest the foundation of the code, such as basic syntax for Python or data structure like string, number, array, conditional, loop, things like that. And also the important thing is that we are not going to use the code for the developing very meaningful algorithm, right? When I say algorithm, it's like very hardcore driven, development process. But we are not to use the code for the design, right? So in this case, we need to understand how the data for design looks like, consists of, for example, like JSON file, image file, or CSV, or whatever data you create. For example, you can go out to have some survey, then you can write something on the paper, which become data, right? So for the section, we're gonna learn the data format and the data structure and how we build the data structure, like semi-structured data or structured data, things like that, which is nothing special. And then also we wanted to learn some special library which help us to deal with the metrics such as NumPy and Python, which is all about like a data processing. It's nothing special. And then we're gonna expand this idea for the geometry level. Yeah. So I believe you guys are already familiar with some geometric computation like line, polyline, polygon by taking the Hosses class, right? Which is one of my favorite class, like Introduction to Computation Design, right? So this is the very small version of the Introduction to Computation Design, but I wanted to focusing on the implementation side, because we don't need to worry about the inner core algorithm, right? Like, for example, like how we get the center point of the point cloud, or how we compute like the degree 3 dot curve. In this case, we don't need to worry about, because the library already resolved it. But the one thing I wanted to focusing on is because, one thing I wanted to focus on is that, like, how we take advantage of this data structure as a design material. Yeah. So in this section, I will start think about, like, simple data structure, which is vector, which is one of the really important data structure for all other computation design. And then we can expand the, like, vector ideas to the point, line, polyline, polygon, mesh, which is actually nothing special, which is just different connectivity. That's it. And then this is the vector data. And then we also have the raster data, which is image or two-dimensional matrix. Because, the computation design is all about dealing with the spatial information. Point, vector, line, which is, again, how we're gonna deal with the spatial information, right? Vector is all about, like, spatial information, right? And the raster as well. Raster is also deal with how we capture the real world information into digital world. We're gonna talk a little bit about that kind of things in that section. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how the machine learning works. Because we have the data, there are multiple ways, but we have there are two ways. One is the deterministic way. We know what we want to do. In this case, we don't need to using the machine learning, because we can just write up whatever code we need. The other way around, we have the data, which is kind of a result, but in this case, we don't know what function can produce this result. It's like a deductive way and seductive way. So based on the problem, we can use different types of tools. But in this case, we're going to use the machine learning, because machine learning tool is kind of very necessary and well-known way to deal with the data, because we are dealing with data for design, right? So I'm going to introduce simple introduction. Simple way to understand, not using the crazy mathematical education, because we are designer. We wanted to understand how model works, and we know what kind of data gonna fit that particular model. So this is what we are interested in, rather than build a very complex network to resolve the real-world problem out there. Yeah. And also I have several examples that I already prepared, like starting from the vector data to the raster data. And then chapter 7, I have a real-world research project, which is about the third place prediction. So we're gonna deal with the third place data from the data collection to the visualization, not only creating the model itself. And then we also have the time to visualize the result on the web environment using the JSD API. And then 9, 10, 11, which is all about the visualization. But the visualization is nothing, just show something. I think it has a more meaningful things. Visualization is sort of the really important tool to develop design process, because without visualization, we cannot do nothing, right? Because it's like a feedback between digital world to the human, right? Because we are human being, we are like a very rely on the visual cue. So for the visualization purpose, what I want to emphasize is that how we're going to decompose the geometry data, and then how we take advantage of the data structure to process our design process. Then meantime, the visualization frequently happen, so that we can do some mapping or tracing or 3D visualization. So I'm going to talk about like a small technique and pipeline. As long as you're familiar with other computation tools such as Grasshopper or Python or other things, it's gonna be easy to understand the pipeline. And then the goal of this material is to take advantage of this code that I already write and then implant in your projects. So these are pretty much about the overview I'm preparing for this workshop. Do you guys have any question about it? Yeah. If Jonathan has a question, please leave your message on the chat.